prior to this year. Last year we met a couple of times and we got to discuss the projects, but this year the time was really set in stone, which was nice. We had entire days to sit down and come up with different ideas. And it was nice to share our ideas with each other. I think that was the best part, was to show student work.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think made a big difference this year was students being able to take ownership over what it was that they did, and they could share it with the whole class. They were proud of it. They wanted it to be up on the walls. They wanted everybody to be there to recognize the work that they had done. So that was really nice, and it was a very positive experience. The projects were there, and then I could kind of adapt them to science. So, for example, my favorite project was the 5-picture story.
Which is like all around
which
your
is
room
all
now.
over the place now, and I've used it in at least 3 different ways. I used it in the study of immunology, the immune system.
Yeah.
We used it with evolution and Darwin, and we had the picture of the beagle and the Galapagos Islands and the different species of animals, and the kids had to sequence it, which is the main part of science, which is the theme of science, but at the same time they got to write a really fun story, entertaining story, and at the same time take ownership over that story and then want to share it with the class. The other way we used it was in microbiology. So I gave them pictures of people on an airplane, just kind of covering their faces. There's flight attendants taking their temperature, and then I gave them a picture of just some microbes. A scientist studying in the lab, and then they had to take actually 5 pictures and turn it into some kind of story, and they had a lot of fun with it. In addition, I was able to set a rubric with vocabulary that they had to have in their story. So I was able to accomplish everything that I needed to teach for that unit with one assignment. So by using the vocab, like an epidemic, a pandemic, a microbe, different shapes of bacteria, they were able to insert that into their story and learn the vocab, and at the same time learn writing skills as well.
So would you say that throughout the year that we were together that you saw an improvement in their writing?
Oh yes, absolutely. Like for example, the first time we did the 5-picture story, it was challenging for them. It took them a long time. It took them 2 or 3 full periods to make their story. And they also had trouble coming up with their own ideas, how to make it flow, how to make it sequence. And then as we go out through the year, if you compare it to the microbiology stories, one period, every story had a sequence, every story had a flow. They were all interesting, they all included the vocabulary, and it was a very good story. And it only took 1 period.
And
yeah, the culminating project was a way for them to pick a type of technology, and the progression of technology throughout time is one of the main themes in science. So we wanted them to pick a type of technology, whether it be some type of communication device, transportation device, even entertainment from the internet to the iPod. And so students had to pick one type of technology, and they had to kind of apply it in their own ways. So for example, they had to make a visual piece, they had to make a writing piece, and they had to make an original media piece, whether it be a rap or a song or a video. And then they would take those 3 things, those 3 pieces of work, and they would turn it into a final paper, a final essay. And their final essay, the major theme of it was the impact that technology has had on the United States and, of course, the world. They had to include both the pros and the cons to that technology. So, for example, one student chose the atom bomb, which I thought was a phenomenal idea.
yeah.
Because he could talk about the social, the political, the economic aspects to it, and then get into the science of it. And then at the same time, a lot of his supporting paragraphs were the pros of it, and then of course the cons as well.
This final piece does feel like a culmination for them in this project.
I think what's nice is that they know that. A lot of times you ask a student what they're doing and they say, I don't know. They knew exactly why they made those 3 pieces, and it really helped them to write the final essay. a number of students approached me and they said, Mr. Glotzer, I already turned in my pieces. Can I have them back so that I can use the information from that to write my essay? And that was exactly what I wanted.
So it's been an interesting position because you've actually worked in all three areas of professional development with the writing project.
Right.
Because you were on the core team, you were in the project here,
Yep.
and this year. So I don't know, what's your takeaway from the writing project?
I think that it's really important, especially now where teachers feel like they're kind of losing a little bit of control, that you can just kind of take what you've always done and what you've been passionate about doing each year in your curriculum and really just kind of make it go in a different direction. So I often think about, those traditional projects that teachers like to do and how, incorporating a two-voice poem into it or, having the kids instead of a book report do like an artifact. I think it's the same concept. The kids are walking away with the same learning, but just kind of gearing it in a different way. I think the interest plays the biggest piece because, I think kids like what's new and what's different and things that they can connect to. And one of the biggest things that I liked about all of the projects we talked about this year was the collaboration. And I think for kids that are used to, kind of just sitting at their desk and just writing, to collaborate, to look at things differently, to see writing in a different way has been the most powerful part. For example, just their two-voice poem. I have that fresh in my mind because we wrote them and then we kind of took it a different way and we did it digitally. So now they're thinking of the components of, your visual, your photo, whatever photo you're using, their voice, what message are they really trying to convey and how can that kind of be brought through. They really liked the musical component of having music in the background, and they made a poster because Maureen and I collaborated with that idea, and then it seemed like the perfect time to introduce a photo story because I hadn't gotten to do it this year. And I love the way you crossed paths, like science and social studies. That was really neat because we don't really get an opportunity to do that all the time. And I was glad to have the 5th grade because that really could have just been the secondary crew to kind of take advantage of it. But I do like the bridging between 5th grade, who teaches all the subjects, into kind of, I feel like we've set our kids up for the next step. So if Lucas wants to, use the same approaches, it'll just be like a refresh. It won't be a first time teaching.
Well,
yeah. Well, first off, it was definitely a good experience. It was great. I enjoyed the collaborative time with my colleagues, which is so rare. That's probably one of the most beneficial parts to it, is just being able to sit down with some teachers and plan and talk and share. And often teachers not even in the same building, we were collaborating with high school teachers as well. Just getting some of their ideas and sharing our ideas with them was really valuable, for sure. And to be able to do that, I don't know how many times we met this year, maybe 8, 10, I don't know. We had
fewer.
Yeah, less.
Yeah.
It seemed like more. But just being able to meet those for those days was really beneficial. And I was teaching writing this year, so I was given a writing. I didn't teach writing last year. Well, I taught ELA, I'm sorry. But I was given a specific writing class this year called intensive writing. And I wasn't really sure where I was going to go with it, so this gave me a lot of really good ideas and plans and what I was going to do with the kids. It was definitely beneficial. A lot of the ideas that you guys brought to us, that Tom brought down from the college and were ideas that we used. And then we passed them on to other colleagues in the building that were like, hey, what is that? That looks cool. Some of them, like the 5 image stories, was such a big hit here at the school. I think half a dozen teachers were doing them that weren't even in their writing project, it seemed.
That's good to know.
And they were posting them in the hallway, and the kids really got into a lot of that stuff. The 2-voice poem was another big hit for me. The found poetry. Just getting them to do this kind of work, a little more creative, and less kind of assessment driven and more student driven. And then from that we can obviously assess, but it's definitely beneficial to my class and my students for sure.
And did you see an improvement in their writing?
Yeah, I mean, what I would do is take some of the ideas to focus on certain skills that I saw they needed help in. I would use some of them to their strengths, but then I would also use them to support their gaps, some of the weaknesses they had in their writing. An example of that is their conclusions. Writing conclusions have been notoriously difficult for my students. I think all students everywhere. They'll kind of say, well, then that's all I have to say about that. And now I'm done with the essay.
Right.
So what I did is during the 5-image story, I targeted that one, for one of my lessons. I just targeted saying, why did you choose that picture as your final picture? And they were able to articulate to me and tell me exactly why that picture would sum up their whole 5-image story beautifully. And I'm like, so that's what you need to do for a conclusion. It's the same idea. Why, that's one of the most important pictures on that project is that last one. And it's such an important piece of an essay as a conclusion. It's just, they struggled with it. So they had to just think, why am I choosing these words in my essay? I hope you liked my essay. Thanks for reading. Those words are chosen just because you're trying to get out of the essay. You don't really know what to say. That's not acceptable. You need to really think about, why are you putting those words in there? What do they mean? And how do they wrap up the whole piece? So I use that 5-image story to do that. How does this picture wrap up the whole piece? And where does it take us now? Because often those stories aren't done. The story's never finished. It's just kind of abandoned. It's like a good movie. The director will tell you, you can never finish a movie. You just abandon it because otherwise you'll work on it for your whole life. You'll edit it, tweak it. And writing is kind of the same way. You can literally just sit on an essay forever.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's rare that you have that kind of endurance, diligence to keep working and working and working. But so you have to get out of an essay at some point. I don't mean to say it that way, but you have to kind of have a back door, a way out of that essay. And the conclusion needs to be strong, though, and often leave you, where do we go from here? What's next? What's the rest of the story? So they understood that in the 5-image story, and I tried to use that to help teach conclusion. It seemed to work really well.
That's
the 2-voice poem worked really good for comparing and contrasting. We did a lot of it in social studies class. We were comparing and contrasting different cultures, different geographic locations. They liked that. The Venn diagram is a good tool, but there's not a whole lot of depth to it if that's all it is, just a Venn diagram. If it's just a piece to that 2-voice poem, and then they present the 2-voice poem, and they do some creative work around it, they all work really well together. And I didn't know any of those techniques before this year, so I guess to answer your question long-windedly, it was very beneficial. And the multi-genre project was really cool. That was probably my favorite.
Well, and those are all pieces.
They're pieces of it, yeah. I just like to think that way. Just making all those connections and tying everything in. And they take a lot of ownership over the project. It's very creative. I don't know, and I'm a believer in that. That liberal arts mentality of just a very well-rounded, holistic education, tying in poetry, theater, music, So you got the arts, and then, you know,
Media.
pulling in the media, the technology, and of course the literature and the text, research. All of it comes together in those projects, and as it should. And no one piece is stronger than the other. It's not like, well, this is the research text-based piece, so this should be weighted more than the theatrical drama piece. No, they're equally weighted because they're equally as important to that project and to the kids' education. You know?
Exactly. It's great.
So it was good. It was good working with you guys too. You know, definitely. You guys have a lot of patience with us, and walked us through, you know, a lot of stuff.
That was a pleasure.
So that was good.